Welcome back to BLCVikings.com. Don Westphal, Director of Athletics at Bethany. We're going to close out this academic year by talking to some of the spring sport coaches, and we're going to lead things off here for this edition with softball, and that means head coach Renee Tatge is with us. And Coach, season drawing to a close about a week ago for the conference teams. You guys have been out a little longer than that. Unable to make conference play this year, and obviously disappointed in that regard. But your team this year, a very unique blend of some upperclassmen and a lot of freshmen who were expected to come in. And to some degree, they did make a big impact on the team, no question about that. But maybe a little bit of that inexperience and just people getting the gel a little bit too much to overcome this year? Or how would you classify the season from your regard?
I mean, we knew it was going to be a challenge coming in. We lost 5 seniors last year, all of them very much impact players on the team. So we had some big shoes to fill coming in, and the freshmen knew that. We talked about that, and in one instance that's kind of exciting for the freshmen because then they've got opportunities coming in right away. At the same time, that's a big step up from high school. So as far as working together, I think that they did, and there comes a point where you're kind of coaching on the fly because what we do in the gym doesn't necessarily simulate what actually happens on the field. So I think, I'm looking forward to big things next year now that they've got 1 year of experience under their belts. Okay.
I know you guys have the trip that goes down to Florida here. You guys must have come back from Florida feeling pretty good about where things were at. It's tough to go out there and all of a sudden get off a plane and instantaneously play your first games, but you had some success down there. And that certainly led into some of the early season. I know you can come back to Minnesota, a blend of some games outdoor. You got into the Dome up in the Twin Cities right away. But just the fact, and you played St. Scholastic, our conference champion, played them tough in a couple of games. But just how difficult is that to deal with when given a certain game, a certain week, whether it's in the gym practicing, you're in a dome playing, you're outside practicing, it must be really tough to create some continuity, certainly from a defensive standpoint.
Right. Oh, I think that's the biggest one is, I don't have a problem playing dome and I don't have a problem playing outside. Wherever we are, it's fine. But yeah, for the girls to adjust to every field, it's kind of a different game every single time they go out. And, and I guess that's a reality for all the teams up here. It's just something you deal with in Minnesota. But it certainly doesn't make it any easier. Yeah. And of course, what we do in the gym, again, that's such a foreign surface to what we're going to see when we actually get to game time. So.
Some of the highlights for you personally on the season, as far as some of the team performances. Obviously, again, you're freshmen. If you look at some of the postseason honors, there's no question Anna Peipenhagen coming in, leading the conference in strikeouts. There are only 2 pitchers in the conference who recorded more than 100 strikeouts. She had 207. She beat her close opponent by about 50.
She did.
So she had a tremendous season. Cindy Polachek also got some honors. But some of the other highlights for you.
Yeah, both of those 2 girls came in and made a big difference for us. I don't know that we really had necessarily a standout here and there besides, Anna in the circle is obviously huge, but it was almost kind of nice to see that there wasn't any big, top of our lineup is our big explosion and then we die off towards the end or something like that. What I kind of liked was all the way through our lineup we had people who could hit the ball, and that's almost nicer than having 1 or 2 standouts, as I felt like we had a solid roster all the way through, which we haven't necessarily always been able to say. So that was kind of nice this year, and again, I'm looking forward to big things next year now, bringing a lot of those girls back.
Well, let's talk about next year. We mentioned a couple of key players who could be involved with the future of Bethany playing, but obviously some of the other freshmen making an impact. And I guess from your standpoint, some of those upperclassmen who might no longer be with the program moving on with graduation, stuff like that, what are some of the biggest holes, some areas that you have to address and fill within the roster for next year?
Sure. We have no seniors on the team this year, so we are not losing any to graduation. So I'm expecting those impact players that came in this year as my upperclassmen, as my returners, to be here next year filling their same roles that they did this year.
Must be kind of nice to know that now that we just talked about the fact that the continuity, bringing in so many new players this year, the fact that everybody is eligible to come back for next year, must be pretty exciting about that standpoint. And you kind of build from a foundation, and now it's a matter of maybe looking for a little more competition within certain positions, a little more depth within certain positions, right?
Yep, absolutely. Starting with that base that we have this year, and like I said, we felt pretty solid throughout the lineup. But yeah, now just looking at bringing in a couple new recruits to add to that, that's pretty exciting. Because normally, like this year, we kind of felt like we were starting over again, kind of reloading our lineup. So this year we have our lineup, and we're just enhancing with the recruits coming in.
And the conference each and every year, certainly you mentioned Scholastica, and we're going to talk a little about Northwestern, but finally it's just, you guys need to progress because everybody in the conference, you look at Crown and the improvements they've made. Northland had, I thought, a pretty good year. AMLC, there continues to be some challenges out there. Minnesota Morris, a team that finished higher than you guys, but you were able to take a game from them as well. The challenges within playing in the conference here are not going to diminish by any means. There just seems to be a little more of a balanced approach by most of the teams in the conference.
Yeah, this was each year, it seems like we've had less and less disparity between the teams. There used to be those uppers, and you mentioned Scholastica and Morris and Northwestern. They're traditionally in those upper four, and and then you usually knew who the bottom 2 or 3 were, but it wasn't the case. I think more and more, gosh, there's teams that are playing hard that are at the bottom who are playing hard against those upper teams, and people taking games from teams that you wouldn't expect them to. So it's actually kind of exciting for the conference that everyone is stepping up and playing.
A lot of balance. You need to bring your A game every weekend on those series.
All right. Yeah.
We've been talking softball here. We thank you for joining us for this installment of Bethany Sports Beat. Renee Tatge and Don Westphal. Keep coming back to blcvikings.com.